Today, I want to welcome Riddhi Dasani to our Blueprints for Success. It's a real pleasure having you on board. We're going to be talking a lot of geek stuff, which is awesome, which is a little bit different from what we have been doing in a few others, but I thought it was really great to bring you in. So welcome to the series.
Yes. Thank you so much, Deirdre. It's real pleasure to get in here. I really find myself very honored and grateful to be here. So thank you for having me.
You're most welcome. Let's start off with a little bit about you. So tell me what you're passionate about. What are your goals? Where are you heading? I know we're going to talk a
Mhm.
bit about AI as well, but just tell us a little bit about who you are and what people might find interesting about you.
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. As Deirdre briefly introduced, I'm Riddhi Dasani. I'm out of Canada at this point, but originated from India, migrated here to do my studies. And then from then on, I've been part of a lot of machine learning or deep learning cross section. So started off as an electrical engineer, have been geek, as you might call it, the whole time. So that's all I do and breathe. So that's about what I find very passionate for. I have been doing a lot of data science roles in quite recently as well, working for one of the big consulting company, which means that I do projects for my clients, wherever whichever problem they find, I try to solve it. And Python is my language. So if you are curious to know about what it takes to be there, I'm more than happy to describe more. But that's a little bit about myself. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So maybe if you can explain, what does the day look like for you? Because for most people, when you say things like machine learning and AI and data
Mm-hmm.
science,
Mm-hmm.
it kind of is a little bit overwhelming. So if you
Correct.
could explain maybe in, I don't know,
Correct. Yeah.
layman's terms, what that
Yeah.
might mean.
Absolutely. So we live in AI world these days, right? Which means that you open up your camera by your just face detection. That's what I did in my early career as well, which is called computer vision. And it takes deep learning algorithms to do it. Because why computer vision? Because image is the data, and why deep learning is it's an intelligent way of processing all this, right? So all those back end work, like how it can just a very simple example is this, right? You open your camera, yeah, if you just unlock your phone with camera, that's a real cool application that I've been working on in my early career. From then on to now, all those terms like machine learning, deep learning, AI, but they are all consolidated in a world where do the back end part of it. So you give me problem, I try to solve it. That's what we do in consulting world, where not one problem is defined. We solve our clients for their different applications. Officially, data scientist or machine learning engineer is my roles. Basically, that means that write codes in one particular language, which is Python. And my day looks like that we gotta get to the storyboard, as you wanna say it, or maybe sprint, meaning that you define your task for week or month to come, and then you get through it, update your team, but mostly it's just very standalone from the perspective that you work on your task and you let your peers work on theirs and then you combine. So yeah, I hope I
Okay,
did justice on explaining what it takes.
I
Yeah.
think so. What I would
Yeah.
like to ask is, who do
Mhm.
you work with? So in other words, obviously a lot of people that I've been speaking to
Mhm.
are architects and analysts. Do you work
Mhm.
with those, and how do you work with them?
Okay, awesome. Yeah, that's a great question. So when I say that consulting works a little differently, meaning that for that particular project, that could be, so this is the hierarchy. I am senior consultant right now. It starts from analyst, consultant, senior consultant, then manager, senior manager, and partner or director. Essentially, up till senior consultant level, you are all geeky or just technical, right? And you get task assigned by your manager, senior manager, or partner director. You report to them from the perspective that they'll come with an objective. You try to drill something down for them that this is an architecture diagram looks like, this is the final thing would look like. But and you work with analyst and consultant from the perspective that they get little or smaller tasks than you, but you coordinate with them day in day out just to make sure that things are aligned. So divide and conquer part is for analyst, consultant, and senior consultant, and anything above that, which is manager, senior manager, partner, director, they are all leadership team, which talks to client on behalf of you, gets you the task, and you do you. That's how it works. Yeah.
Okay, good. What really got you into this? So what was the key turning points for you in your career to go, oh yeah, really, this is what I want to do and this is what I'm passionate about? What were those?
Yeah, absolutely. I was looking forward to this particular question. I was like, this makes me so nostalgic. So basically, I would, when I explain myself, I say that I migrated to Canada, right? So as an immigrant, you try to get your hands onto anything that makes sense at that point. So with all the honesty, I did not make a conscious choice. I was just trying to get to something. And that's why while I was doing my masters, my major was hardware verification, which is you could think of Intel or AMD companies which make the chip, the hardware of your computer, right? So that was my task, that how do we verify that everything is up and running programmatically. That was my specialization. But I landed into an internship which where they were doing computer vision and deep learning stuff. I'm talking about year 2016 when these things are pretty new. If piece of code can classify if an image is dog or cat, that was a boom. So what this startup particularly was doing, it was taking some of the people who are passionate to learn, which I feel really right fit. And I was like, okay, fine, tell me what it needs to be done. And that was my first internship, and it was unpaid. So I was not getting paid for it. I was doing it side by side just because I want to get to the exposure of how industry looks like. So this was the turning point, and it led me to here, which I cannot be more grateful than this. So turning point was just like you try to talk to people, networking, you find something which aligns that. Okay, for my objective was just they were looking for somebody who is able to learn something on their own, and I was like, okay, fine, I can do that, and that's how I got into this. So yeah.
Awesome.
So,
I think it's good to be proactive. A lot of people
exactly.
sit and wait. And as you mentioned, just being active and doing things is half the battle won. Just getting involved. So,
Mhm.
yeah, in your own words, can you describe the importance of the role that you're playing in this particular field? What do you
Mhm.
think that would be?
Yeah, great question again. So I think essentially what we are doing is, maybe let's just say that I try to think more philosophically on my free time as well, that how much impact this work that I'm doing gonna help or change people's lives, right? So I'll give you a very quick example of when I was working with one of the startups doing a lot of computer vision deep learning. That time we built a software, or let's just call it software, but essentially a system where if in the automotive or manufacturing industry, we will always have a section to do an inspection, a visual inspection. So they take an object, they try to find any defect on it, and it was getting manual for like longest time. And now we have a visual inspection system, as we call it, which where cameras are placed, it will find the defect and separate that, okay, this is defected. Now you or many people, and including myself, was thinking that if we replace this, it's essentially we are taking people's jobs. But think it from this perspective, and this kind of get me going as well, that we replace that monotonous task where people just need to look at those images day in day out, look at those objects day in day out and find the defects, versus we now have a system where they don't have to do that monotonous task. They can find something which is more creative and more impactful as what we should be doing as a human. So I this is just an example, but all my projects which will make either life easier or faster, and that kind of makes me excited to do this. That okay, yeah, it is helping in some way or other, and this is just about the impact will take a lot more time. We're just starting off with like building a little block with them, and then it will start escalating when time comes. So that's my motivation, and that kept me going as well. And I would think that is making an impact on a smaller version, and then it will start doing it. So yeah,
Actually, a really good point because people are going to worry about their jobs, right?
exactly. Yep, yep.
They, they are. And as you were explaining, there's certain tasks that are super
Mhm.
boring. Capturing documents or reviewing things. AI is much quicker and easier to do those kind of things. But do you think that there will be particular roles impacted by AI? Or do you think, yeah, which roles do you think? Do you want to share them?
Yeah, no, I think so. Basically, I skipped on this part, but right now, since a year and a half, I'm totally into generative AI world, and I'm absolutely doing that. Just shifted in my career as well, doing all the projects which are related to generative AI. And I think generative AI is the most scariest part, or just took the world by storm, right? So I to talk to every type of individual and get their views on it. So initially, when I got my hands on it, I was not really worried about what it will make sense out of it, right? So originally, to your question, are we supposed to be scared by this? And including myself, come on, like there are just so many AI software engineer which can replace me as well, right? So we are all together in this. Let's just be clear on that. But it will take some jobs, but it will create new jobs. Is just the one liner for it. It's not mine, but I can make sense out of it because it just feels like when industrial automation came, we all were reluctant to take advantage of that too, right? So it's just the similar, but the pace is super fast that we might not be able to just accept it that way, right? There are so many implications, but I would think that yes, it will affect the way we work, but it's just about using that at your advantage versus just being late in this race. So we can't really change it. We just need to change how it works for us. That's it. So I would think that it will take jobs in a good way, that maybe it will use our actual intellect or actual intelligence for something which is for good, not for monotonous task or boring task as we say it, right? Humans are way more intelligent than that. So yeah, that's my perspective. I could be wrong, and I would definitely hear other people's opinions on this, but honestly I would think that yes, it will change the way we work, and that would be the new world or new era would look like. Yeah.
It's happening so fast. I think that's the big thing with this. It's not like a slow introduction. And so people do have to know what is going on around them.
Mhm.
But I would
Mhm.
agree with you. I think people who are not going to educate themselves are going to struggle. And that's
Right.
just a reality because unfortunately, if you're not willing to invest in the learning that is required in this change, it's going to affect your role. However, I think that if you have the understanding of how to use the tools more effectively, you can be even better at your work and run your models for, I don't know, whether you're using agentic type models or whatever, run those models and go have your coffee and talk to your peers.
Okay. Yeah,
But
absolutely, Deirdre. I think you are spot on that part that let's just not be late in adopting those technologies, and we will need all kind of people in this. It's not just a tech-driven thing. We would need people from every industry that they can make sense out of it. They can use for their advantage and tell us that how we can make their lives better. So rather be just like resistant, let's just collaborate. That would make lot more sense in my opinion, that let's do that.
yes,
Yeah.
we definitely are in agreement with that.
Yes.
Um, could you maybe share a project or an initiative where your position played a
Mhm.
critical role and it really helped that project?
Right. Yes. So I would think that when, let's say, generative AI, right? When that came, there are just so many people who wouldn't know how to use it for their advantage. So that's where my job or my position comes into picture, that we make their understanding better, that how to use it. Because I couldn't imagine that we might not be able to find all the resources that we need. Like, how do I use it, even if I were to use it? What are the security concerns? What are the risk implications for it? So I come into the picture where they either are trying to find a problem, or they know this problem exists but they don't know how to solve it. So I think I would call it critical from the perspective that if we don't use technology wisely, it can be destructive. So I would
Yeah.
think that it's all about making a transparent and clearer picture for all my clients, that this is what it can take and these are the things you should think from now rather than wait for a longer time. So that's why I think my job is going to have a crucial piece of it, that making things transparent for them and just not distracting them from, oh my, this is so visionary or magical. It's almost like, okay, let's be realistic and let's just know what it can do and what it cannot do. This is where my job, that's what I do. Yeah.
That's great. My next question is where do you see this going in the next 5 to 10 years? Because I know none of us know, but I'm sure you have some idea what you think might be going on.
And as going circling back to what we were discussing, the questions, answers, that it is super fast. It's an evolution that that never happened in human history. That so this fast everything is going. And I talked to somebody who is in the industry for 25 long years, and he was saying that I've seen everything, like how C++ converted into Java and so on, and they also find it super fast. So that's why, as you rightly said, that none of us know where it is going. It just, my understanding is right now, we are not even 10% to what it should look like. It will just go super fast from this point, because now everybody knows where the data is being used. Like, what are we trying to get from here is is the point where every general person who is not tech, who doesn't know how AI works, let's just say that, even those people will make sense out of it, and they will change how we are going to evolve. So maybe it's a little complex in my head too, but essentially what we see right now is just what tech people envisioned it to, and what will happen in 5 to 10 years is what non-tech people are envisioning it to.
Yeah.
So that's what we are going, and it just looks like that's possible, that's realistic, and that will make life better for a good things. That's what 5 to 10 years, or even let's just say that might happen in 2 3 years from now, but they will drive the next generation in evolution as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think it's a wonderful platform for entrepreneurs.
Hmm.
Honestly, you can start creating all these niche businesses. It is a little bit frustrating that funding always comes from big business and those kind of things. So I suppose
Hmm.
that the open communities are really fantastic. You've got your Huggy Face, you've got Llama or Olama, which you can
Exactly.
download. There's lots of stuff. And there's also, watched recently, somebody was saying that they're building their own machines as well for home. So
Right.
that's going to be a very exciting space because that's those PC builders back in the day that used to make all their own things. So I do see that there's going to be a rapid change, but I do want to also point out to people that not everything has to be paid for. You just go onto GitHub, go onto all these different resources. Are there any of them that are your favorites that you like to go to regularly? Do you have like clear followers that you have a look at?
Yeah, that seems so. Basically, yeah, there are just so many, right? And you mentioned a really good point that I would want to echo as well, that open source community is the best thing that can happen to anything. Right now, things are not very closed source. We can get access to, believe me, everything. You mentioned about Llama, which Meta open source. There are just so many people who are walking towards making it open source, right? And by open source meaning many people can try it on their own, and they don't have to pay for it. So I would think that what helps me right now is just, basically there are just so many newsletters that you can subscribe to, just to, let's just say that, take it as your digest, because you can't read everything that's happening
Yeah.
around it, but you can have a summary of what's happening. Now if somebody is curating it will be biased toward that one person, right? So you would think that maybe you read 4 or 5 newsletters where people are talking about stuff that are
Yeah.
happening.
Yes.
Or we all know about ChatGPT, what, or ChatGPT similar products or similar models, right? More LLMs can do that. Now I would think that maybe I can make my own board which can take all the informations from different newsletters and summarize it for me, and maybe a little podcast where things can happen. So I would think that there is not just one, there are just so many ways I digest everything that's happening around and make my way from it. But basically right now I just try to absorb more than anything else. And there are various ways to do it. Maybe newsletter is one way, maybe some podcast as yours, to go through it and see what people are talking about. That could help. So that's my
Mm.
thing. If I really have to give you one YouTube channel that I really love, which is Three Blue One Brown. I also met that person. I like honored to talk to that person as well in my past endeavors. But basically, he is one person who would, if you are interested into learning how to know the building blocks of what's happening around, he would be able to make you very clear on how to visualize this and what's happening. So if you're more like machine learning data science a person, you could look into his channel and get to learn the building blocks, because I'm an advocate that if you are trying to get into the field, first know your basics, like really know your basics, and then take it from
Yeah.
there. So yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So we'll get the link from you and we'll add that link as well
Yep.
in the blog post after the events. That would be
Yep.
awesome. In your current role, are there
Mhm.
any key challenges that you're facing or opportunities that you see coming up?
Yeah, absolutely. So challenges, yes, there are. Personally, I would say that where I am struggling, or where I think I might be able to do a lot more than my skills are, which is those business skills, or we call it interpersonal or soft skills, right? They are very underrated, and that thing I
And they're
only
very
got to know.
important.
Exactly, in a very, like, I did not think that would make a lot more impact in how I see it. So challenges wise, it's almost like when you grow up in the ladder, you start from the world where you can solve problems. But then at one level, it's almost about how you can present what the problems are, how you communicate with people in a most effective way. Nobody likes to listen 30 minutes presentation if it can be done in a small email that this is my problem, tell me what's the next steps are, right? It just because things are changing so fast and our time is the most critical thing, it's almost like how your mind map can be converted into something which is effective. So I think that's my challenge as well, and it will take so much more time to get there, because it's there is no one recipe like a Python code, right? There is just one way to do it in a way that it takes little lesser time than how this can be done. And believe me, it's crucial, it's important, and it's important to start from whichever path in your career you are, that try to build those interpersonal skills as well. It will make drastic change in how your career progresses. So that's a challenge part, but I would also think that it's a learning process. It cannot be done in a 1 month of school, let's say. It is just like hands on. Try to do it, and you'll get the better version of yourself in few years. So that's something I would call it as a challenge. If you are geeky, you would struggle a lot to talk to people and tell them that okay, this is happening. So yeah, do it. It's not impossible. It's just tricky. Yeah.
Great. Any particular skills, tools, technology you would
Mhm.
recommend that people use or that you're using that could help with this
Yeah.
process?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say, so basically, I talked a lot about how I started with computer vision. Then I moved to NLP, which is text data and processing of that. Then, if you are in consulting, or by consulting, I just mean that if you are not having one product, but if you are solving multiple problems for your clients, it will require a lot of like drastic or shift in your way of solving problems or seeing problems. So, just to tell you that this is what my career looked like, and that's why I kind of uh, changed technologies quite fast as well. But throughout this thing, Python stayed consistent. So, Python was my programming language, and Python is my programming language. So, even if you are a computer science major or not a computer science major and trying to get into data science field or data analyst or data architect, you would want to have at least one language that you can rely on. And even when we have this Gen AI agents who could code for us, it will still require human intelligence to read the code and make sense out of it. So that's not going anytime soon anywhere. So if you are starting your career, start with one programming language that you are very comfortable with, and then choose your data. You could be very good at unstructured data, which is image or text or audio, or you could start with structured data, which is just rows and columns, right? And when you start off, the machine learning engineering part of it, which is you understand what are all the algorithms, what it takes to get there, those things are important to know and start from there. And then I would say that right now I'm still using TensorFlow and PyTorch as my deep learning frameworks if I were to build something from scratch, which is going to be a lot more different in coming years. But right now, that's what I do as well. But Again, those are all frameworks and libraries that you can rely on. And then I would say that be very comfortable to try fast and fail fast rather than reading a code block. Try it yourself. It will make your uh, things go in the right place. So I would say, even if you don't listen to any of the things that I said before, but right now, just if you were to listen to one thing, which is try yourself, do it. It's not going to blast it. Just, if anything, will fail and tell you this is an error, right? So do it. It helped me, and it will, I'm sure it will help you as well. Yeah.
Mhm.
So
That's great
that's what.
advice. Just try it. I agree with you. What's the worst that can happen is that you don't understand and you have to learn. That's the worst that can happen. Yeah, and I don't think you'll break the internet. I remember there was that thing many years ago where people were scared to send emails because they're going to break something. But yeah, it's
Yep.
not.
Yep. We came long way from there, and I have had multiple mentees that I talked to. I was like, we are not in an industry where your mistake can cut somebody's hand, right? We came from an industry as well where the risk is very high, but we are in a software world that maximum it can happen is just throw an error. It won't work, but it wouldn't do any harm to you or any living being, which basically is a motivation that try it yourself, and you will know how satisfied you will be at the end of the process. At the same time, there is no risk in just
Yeah.
learning. You would know that where to get there, so it'll be fun.
Yes.
Yes.
That's great advice. I wanted to ask your opinion on, I know it depends where you're going, whether it's Google or whether it's OpenAI, you've got the term, or Microsoft, you've got things like Copilot, you've got assistants, you've got agents. Where do you
Mhm.
think it's actually going? Because there's a lot of talk now. I know Andrew Nick, he spoke about agentics and putting a whole bunch of bots together to perform functions. What are your thoughts around that? And how real do you think it'll be in organizations?
So this giants that you talked about, right? OpenAI, Google, Microsoft, they all are, even Meta, they all are running towards a competition that will give us the best and better and accurate and faster models, right? So I would say that where you talked about something around genetics as well. So there are two pieces of this answer. The first one is we'll start having better models. Right now, only OpenAI has the best model, but in few years, and right now there there are so many competitors which can do the same thing with less than 2% accuracy, right? So I think we will make trade-off out of it and use it for us. But that's one research part of it, which will get us better models. And now the application part of it, which is getting those models applicable into so many industries. There is healthcare, there is telecommunication, there is insurance companies and whatnot. So I would think that this research people will work towards getting us the best thing, and this application part of it, which will the sooner will catch up to that, which is happening right now, which is they all are putting those models in place. But in few months from now, only after that we'll get to know that are we really replacing humans, are we using that to make things faster. That part, it's still not there. We don't know how to evaluate these things. We don't know how to get value out of it. Like, we all believe in numbers, right? So if it is making a change, then we would all ask how much change. So I think right now the application part, it's happening, but we just don't know the impact of it, which will happen in a few months from now. And that's where we'll see that, yeah, boom, is it really happy part or sad part, we'll know. But right now the application thing is going quite faster as well, so here we'll work towards a lot of things that will do things better and faster and whatnot, and here we'll see that what's an impact and how to evaluate that impact. So that's my answer. I hope I answered that well. Yeah.
Yeah. So which one do you like most? You were saying that OpenAI is
Mhm,
performing best overall at
mhm,
this stage.
mhm.
Do you have any favorites though? Are you rooting for
Yeah.
any of the large language models above any others?
It's right. So I think I would say that why I'm more inclined towards, let's say I would say that I love Llama because they are open source. We can do so
Yeah.
many things out of it. I can fine tune my models if need be, right? And that's one thing I can only do with Llama. If somebody asks me that if my client is looking for some economic option and they don't want to get their data to GPT-4, which is OpenAI's model, right? Then I would always root for open source models or something which you have control over. So that's my thing. Then, and Llama is just an example. There are just so many open source models that we can play with, right? And if you say the guardrails wise or security wise, or maybe generative models and its impact for non-tech people, we just don't know that. And GPT-4 or OpenAI with collaboration with Microsoft have done a really good job of guarding what it can and what it cannot generate. So that's why my heart would say that yes, I support OpenAI from the perspective that they are doing so many things to make their models only output which is not against any humanity perspective, right? So that's why this. But I would, my researcher side of it, I would always support the open source models because I can have control over what it can and cannot do,
Yeah.
and I can have it with all the controls and all the things like that. So twofold answers, and that's why it's still a battle to choose. And I'm following all the leaderboards that's around there as well. I can get you some of the links as well, where you can really see that it's not limited by this 4 or 5 companies. There are just so many models that you can use for your industry need. You can use it
Yeah.
for your particular thing. So that's something to look into, and that's the benchmark that how to pick up the model as well. So that's
Yeah.
why those two distinctions, and that's where I will go. Yeah.
Oh, all right. Could you perhaps share some advice or lessons learned for people who want to enter into the industry?
Hmm. Yeah, I can really write a blog post about it. There are just so many lessons learned for sure. I would say that don't hesitate. Just get there. You wouldn't believe that how much. So basically, you don't have to be good at everything. You can pick up on things which you find really passionate about, and the only way to find out is just get there. Talk to people. They might make sense. So I've seen in my team as well, there are just so many physicists, and I did not know that physicists can make to a data science team, and they are, because it's just about your thinking process, right? So from whichever industry you belong to or whichever education background you have had, it's all about, if you're really finding this data science field or even a machine learning researcher kind of thing very interesting and you're intrigued about it, just try to talk to people, find, and you'll find your way from there. So I would say don't hesitate to apply, don't hesitate to try, and don't hesitate to talk to people. You wouldn't know that your particular skill can help in one thing that nobody can do. So it's just about finding that mapping. You don't really have to know everything to start with. And even like it's been 6 years for me in this industry working full time, and I still don't know everything. But it's just about, and I struggle with a lot that, oh my, I did not know this, but it's all about that. Just try to find your mapping and you'll be wonderful at what you do. So one piece of advice is just this: try, talk to people, network, see what you find really passionate about, and if you're having interest, you would make your way from there. So I wouldn't doubt that. So that's what I would think, and it works for me as well. So it's coming from my heart. Yeah.
Good. And then last question that I have for you for
Mhm.
today, and thank you so
Sure.
much for sharing your
Sure.
story. If you could give yourself one piece of advice and
Mhm.
go back in time and give yourself some piece of advice, starting this process, what would it be?
Yeah, I think there are two things. I think I never, so I started off from really different background. Instrumentation and control was my bachelor's, hardware verification was my master's, and I never had a real computer science degree to rely on. Which makes me think that if I gotten a chance at that back in time, or even now, like I'm really thinking to start a degree where I can learn this, the basics of computer science or basics of software engineering. I know it wouldn't make many changes in my day-to-day work, but I would want to have it. So one thing that I would change is, only if I would have known, I could have made that pivot that time. not that I'm regretting anything. It just made it just you would always want things to work differently for you. So it still works that right now what's going on, it still helps. But if I want to change that, and believe me when I say my advice was don't hesitate, that's what I did as well. Like I hesitated a little bit more as well. I would want to just boom. And that's that thing I tried to overcome the fear, not talking to people, not trying to do stuff myself. So if given a chance, I would do it a lot more than what I did. So yeah, that's something I would want to do.
I know, no one knows the future, right? But when you look back, you go, oh, I should have just been a little bit more centered as to what I was looking, especially in this field. I think this is quite an exception. A lot of other fields you can move in and out quite simply, but this
Correct.
one is a bit more challenging. So
Exactly.
that's
Yeah.
fantastic. Thank you for sharing your story. We spoke about a couple of links that maybe we'll share in the blog post. Is there a way in which somebody can contact you if they want to ask
Mhm.
you a couple of questions? What would be best for you?
Yeah, for sure. So I think LinkedIn is one way to go about it. I can give you my LinkedIn and my email as well. If there is anything I can, if from all this discussion, if anything that you would more information you would want to know how to get there, let's say when I say network, but how to start, maybe you have those questions. Feel free to drop me an email. I'll definitely be replying as a time permits, and it might be over just weekends, but I'll do it. So LinkedIn and email is the best way to reach out, and please don't hesitate.
Awesome. That's awesome. Thank you so much. I
Yeah.
think it's been a great interview, Riddhi. So thank you so much for spending time with me. I really appreciate it. Sharing. I know we can speak about a lot more than this. I'm quite excited about what is coming, and I do hope people heed some of these things like get in early, don't be afraid to try, be part of it. Don't just think that it's not going to happen. Thank you very much for this time. I appreciate it very
Yeah.
much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Deirdre. And to all our audience who is going to look at it, just like really, I hope you get some bit of advice that might work for you. And there is place for everybody, so don't hesitate. Just get right there. Yeah. So
That's a
thank you
great
so much
message.
for having me. Thank you so much for having me, Deirdre. It was such a pleasure.